Hi, my name is Jordan Villarreal, and I'm Developer Advocate here at OpsMill. And today we're going to be talking about Infrahub. Infrahub, if you're not familiar, is a platform that lets you unify all of your infrastructure data in one place, and it helps create deliverable services with that data. As part of being in the automated infrastructure delivery process, we also have included benefits in there of data versioning. We have some CI capabilities right out of the box. In this video, we're going to be covering two topics. The first one will be our hardware requirements, and then we're going to follow that up by running our performance benchmark utility so you can see how that works. Then our next topic will be going into two methods for quickly installing or setting up Infrahub so that you can get used to it, play with it a bit. This is more for testing purposes. Let's look at the hardware requirements necessary to run Infrahub. So here we have a specification chart, and you can see the minimum requirements is to have 6 CPU cores with 12 gigs of RAM, and your storage should be running at about 5,000 IOPS, or just you're running on a solid state drive. The recommended is a little bit more than that. So we have an 8 core listed here, 8 CPU core requirements, as well as 16 gigs of RAM, and then the same storage response time requirements. Next, we're going to run our performance benchmark utility so that you have an idea of how you can go about gathering some of these requirements if you already meet them. Here we have our documentation. You can always get the latest documentation at docs.infrahub.app. From here, we'll go into our topics. We'll go down to our hardware requirements where you can see that same list. But right here, we also have our performance benchmark utility, which is very easy to run, assuming that you have Docker already installed. We'll jump into a machine here, and we will run our commands. And then it's going to pull down and execute that performance benchmark utility. And there you go. Our benchmark has completed, and we can see that all 4 stats within this VM here meet specification. Let's look at installing Infrahub for testing purposes. Now, the documentation goes through 5 different ways of installing or running Infrahub, but today we're going to be focused on 2 of them. We're going to be looking at a single line command. It's a curl command that will help pull down these Docker images and spin those containers up. And then the second is we're actually going to clone the GitHub repository and use the invoke commands to bring those containers online. From the different ways of installing Infrahub for testing, we're going to look at single line commands with curl. We'll get out of our presentation. And I've already pulled up the Infrahub documentation. You can always find the latest version at docs.infrahub.app. From here, we're going to click over into our guides, and then we have installing Infrahub. So at the very top here, we have that first way of running the quick start through the curl command. So we can go ahead and copy this and paste this into our Ubuntu machine that has already had Docker installed and updated on it. We will have to authenticate for that sudo command. And then we're going to head and let this run. With that finished, we can go ahead and take a quick peek at Docker, and we'll see we have these containers that are now running. And right here, our server is running on port 8000. So we'll go ahead and pop back over to our browser and browse to that IP address of that machine on port 8000. And once we have this initial page, we can go ahead and click sign in. Our default username is admin and our password is Infrahub. And now we are logged in. You can see in the upper right-hand corner that we now have the administrator logged in and we have access to our system. Of the available methods to install Infrahub for testing, we're going to look at next cloning from GitHub and using the invoke commands to bring the system online. Starting from the official docs, which you can get to at docs.infrahub.app, we're going to go into our guides and into installing Infrahub. Right under the quick start through curl, we have from Git repository. Now I'm going to be cloning this repository into my home drive. You don't have to clone it there. You can really clone it anywhere on your machine that you like. The only real prerequisite is that you be able to read and write in and out of that directory. So we have our git clone command here. We'll go ahead and issue that. Once that has been issued, we now see that we have an Infrahub directory. As we continue down into the documentation, we'll see a listing of a prerequisite for invoke, toml, and docker. Now, I've already installed Docker on this machine, but we don't have invoke or toml. So we are working with Ubuntu, and through Ubuntu, we're going to need to use pip to install. I don't believe we have pip on this machine, so we will cover that real quick here. So that it's going to be sudo apt install python 3-pip. We'll tell that to install. With that completes, then we're going to use pip to install invoke and toml. So we're only going to be using invoke for this demo, but I'm going to install the other prerequisite in here just so we can use it in later demos. With those installed, we can switch over to our directory that we created when we cloned the project. From there, we're going to use the invoke commands, and we have a few different ways that we can use this invoke. So we can use it to just start the demo, but there are also ways to use this to load up a demo schema and some demo data. But since we're just getting started, we're going to go ahead and invoke to start that. You do need to authenticate. And now we're seeing a very similar process to when we use the curl commands. We're getting those Docker images ready, and then once they are ready to go, we will spin those images up and bring the system online. With that completes, I'm going to take a quick peek and make sure those images, those containers have come up. Expand this out a bit, and we can see that our server is running here on port 8000. So we'll go ahead and open a new browser and browse to that IP and port. We'll give it just a moment to load up. And once we have this screen, we can go ahead and click on sign in. Use the default username and password, which are admin and Infrahub. And once we see this screen load up here, we'll see in the upper right-hand corner, our profile is logged in. So there we go. We've cloned the repository and used the invoke commands to bring our demo online. To recap these videos, we went through checking the requirements for Infrahub, as well as doing a quick check to make sure that we were running proper specifications. Then we went through two different ways of actually setting up Infrahub that are designed to be used for people who are testing and just getting into the system. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed these videos and you found them to be helpful.